It's even scarier,
I'm
isn't
sorry,
it?
Councilmember Pat.
It is scarier.
Okay, we are ready, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the June 14th regular Seward City Council meeting to order at 7 p.m. Chief, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Tonight's roll call. Cease.
Here.
Casagrande.
Here.
Bachlan.
Present.
DeMoss.
Here.
McClure.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing, and we do have one public hearing item this evening.
Madam Mayor, I have two written comments that were submitted to me. And then we'll move to the in-person comments.
Yeah, yes, if we could start off with the written, please.
First one is a letter from Marie Gage. I'll just wait a moment for that vehicle. From Marie Gage. How important is it to have the specific behavior health treatment definitions and zones to the planning and zoning short and medium-term priorities? It is very important unless you want drug and substance abuse clinics in all neighborhoods under the disguise of convalescent homes. And then next is comments from Carol Griswold. Dear Council, substance abuse treatment or recovery facility, residential group home, residential care facility, sober living home, psychiatric facility, recovery house, supportive housing, transitional housing. What are these? Should they be allowed, and where? Behavioral health treatment definitions and their zoning are missing from Title 15 and the land uses allowed table. Across the nation, this regulatory vacuum means zoning fights. Seward recently experienced the consequences of unlisted behavioral health treatment uses, resulting in unnecessary community uproar, controversy, and high legal fees. I urge Council to specifically direct Planning and Zoning to add behavioral health treatment definitions, land uses, and zoning as a separate goal to the short and medium-term list in Resolution 2021-067. Behavioral health issues must be addressed by the community, planning and zoning, and council now. And then, signed in to speak, first we have Christiana Smith and Francis Azad Smith.
Dear members of City Council, my name is Christiana Smith and I am the Coalition Programs Coordinator for the Seward Prevention Coalition.
And I am Francis Azad Smith. I am the Outreach and Enrollment Coordinator for the Seward Community Health Center.
Last summer, Mayor Terry made a comment at a council meeting to look into a COVID messaging banner that was consistent to statewide guidelines, referencing Homer's bright signs throughout their community. The Seward Prevention Coalition heard the call and responded. This fits within our mission of partnering to promote all dimensions of wellness through education, advocacy, and support. The Seward is COVID conscious banner hung on the boardwalk at Benny Benson Park and at the Seward Chamber of Commerce Harbor Dock location over the last year and caught the eye of community members and visitors alike, including a reporter and photographer for the Wall Street Journal. This photograph was included in an article and used as the thumbnail for social media posts linking to that article.
At the 2021 Seward Chamber Community Awards, the Seward Community Health Center received the Board of Directors Award for its tireless efforts over the past year during the COVID pandemic. One of the components of the Seward Community Health Center mission is to promote wellness, prevention, and partnerships. We recognize that the efforts to effectively deal with COVID are not over. So we reached out to Seward Prevention Coalition to partner on a broader collaborative campaign, building up on the success of last year's COVID messaging banner. We have been working closely with Prevention Coalition on a summer campaign that is a gentle reminder to be mindful of COVID-19 and the health and safety measures that have been implemented over the last year while life begins to return to normal. We want to invite you to play hard, stay safe. Do your part for a healthy Seward. The slogan was brainstormed from the Kenai Peninsula, being marketed as Alaska's Playground. and all the outdoor activities that community members and visitors can safely do and experience here in Seward.
The new summer campaign banners have now replaced the Seward is COVID conscious ones. We are currently reaching out to other locations throughout the community to display additional banners to increase the visibility and consistency in messaging. Working closely with our design team from Information Design Inc., there are posters available that you may have already seen at a variety of locations and on social media, as well as design stickers that will soon be available to the public free of cost.
So we want to ask for council support and feedback as we explore avenues to market this year's summer campaign messaging and identify additional locations to display the signage and distribute stickers. We will begin radio and newspaper ads soon, and we would like to display banners on light posts in the harbor and downtown areas where community members and visitors frequent. We look forward to working with the City of Seward, the different organizations, and businesses to spread the message that Seward is a safe destination to play part, and that we all can do our part for a healthy and safe summer.
Thank you.
Next, Madam Mayor, is Brandy Arthur.
Hello, members of the council. My name is Brandy Arthur. My husband and I live on the north side of Beach Drive on Willow Point, which is outside of city limits. We bought our home here in 2019, and we're both retired military, and we were well informed of the issues with the wastewater lagoon when we bought. From the 2000, 2012, 2015 issues. We decided to buy anyway. We figured there was no way that the issues that could come up would be that bad or last too long because the major issue was fixed, right, back then. Wrong. So it was bad. For almost 2 months now, my husband and I couldn't open our windows. We can't have a glass of wine on our deck without being physically sick from the stench outside. I won't belabor the fact that we have been miserable as well as our community. I am aware of the repairs and that they are complete, and we are waiting the lagoon to refill. Doug Schleschler has been wonderful at giving us that information. I understand that. And I have to say it's much better than it was, so it's better, but that's the short-term fix. How do we know for certain this isn't going to happen again in 6 weeks, 6 months? You know, how do we know that's not going to happen again? We don't, because a lot of the questions that we're asking, nobody can answer for sure. We get a lot of, we're not sure when the liner was changed, we're not sure when it needs to be changed, we're not sure when the life expectancy is. Those things that we need to know as a community so that we can trust that things are getting done. It's miserable out there, guys. It's miserable. And our community businesses have suffered. I'm a private property owner, but our businesses are suffering. There will be tourists that won't step foot in Seward again because of their experience on Lowell Point within the last 2 months. And I can't say I blame them. Those of us that live on Lowell Point year-round have also had our quality of life affected immensely too. I am embarrassed to have friends and family at my house. It's anxiety-provoking not to know what could come next with this facility. Not only does this reflect on Lowell Point, but it also reflects on the city of Seward. Tourists don't delineate between Seward and Lowell Point. All they see is Seward, and they are synonymous. So when we lose business, you do too. I have so many questions, I have so many concerns, but my main reason for being here tonight is to support the study, the approval of a feasibility study, to lay the groundwork for a long-term plan to mitigate this nuisance to our community. We are here to say, along with some of the people in our community, we are concerned, our community is suffering, and we need answers in relation to a long-term sustainable solution.
Next is Tara Reamer.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, good evening. I'm Tara Reamer, inside city limits, speaking on behalf of the Alaska Sea Life Center tonight. June 14th, 2021. I want to take you back a year and 2 days, how about, to June 12th, 2020. It's a Friday evening. There was a special city council meeting that was being held in the library, you might recall. There were 2 COVID-related topics. One was the Federal CARES Act funding. I had presented to council that previous Monday and had kind of given you a heads up about what was going on at the Sea Life Center. We hadn't been open for very long, but by that Friday we had more data, and we knew what the summer was going to look like, and it was dire. I told City Council that night that the Sea Life Center needed to raise $2 million by September, or we were going to close permanently. We had received a $1 million PPP grant, So we really had a $3 million goal, but we had $1 million down. So I asked for council's help in 2 ways. I asked for $500,000, and I asked for partnership on raising the remaining $1.5 million that we would need. You responded, eventually approving a $500,000 grant, contingent on us raising the additional funds, which was that partnership we needed. And you agreed to this before you even know where the funds were coming. At that point, you didn't know if the CARES Act, the Federal CARES Act funding would be available. So I'm back this year just to really say thank you. It's been a year. Thank you for your dedication to the Alaska Sea Life Center. And thanks for being the first to commit to our $2 million fundraising campaign. I've heard through the grapevine that some in this community don't feel that the city's $500,000 contribution from the Federal CARES Act funding was needed. Some even say it was wasted. We did end up raising a total of $4 million in our campaign. But I'm asking for you to think about this in a completely different way. The fact that the city of Seward was the first to contribute to what became a major fundraising campaign provided momentum. The commitment by the city and therefore of the community also provided endorsement that the Alaska Sea Life Center is a cause worthy of support. That momentum and that endorsement were really responsible for our eventual fundraising success for members of this community, across Alaska, across the country, and even across the world. So simply thank you. You made a difference, and we appreciate it.
Madam Mayor, next is Linda Paquette.
Mayor, Council, Linda Paquette, outside city limits. Got a packed agenda, it seems like. I wanted to speak about a couple of things. I'm really glad to see resolution 005. I think you guys are long overdue on a rise on your stipend, and I don't think this really goes far enough, but it's a start. So I'm really glad that administration brought that forward, and I hope that passes. Resolution 066. This has been a long time coming, and I'm really hoping that this passes because, you know, time passes, and I know there's a lot of people in the city that just think this is going to be a waste of time, and let's just move on, and let's just forget. But we really can't. And I think that this will put it to bed. So I hope that you'll pass this as well. And then the last thing I just wanted to talk about is the lagoon again, because I came across some notes. And back in 2013, in the winter of 2013, I spoke to council about the condition of the lagoon and what was ahead. And I warned that if something didn't get done, like that winter and early spring, that we were up for like a lot of media attention. And if you will remember, the summer of 2014, they could smell it during Salmon Derby at Fox Island. They could smell it at 4th of July, they could smell it at Nash Road. This mountain here kind of keeps you guys a little protected, but some of you could smell it. I think even Casa Grandes could smell it at their house. So, last May, as a part of being on PACAD, I brought the lagoon up in May. And I said, if there was a summer that you could deal with this thing, it's this summer, because we're not going to have anybody except Alaskans. So let's look at it. And the pushback that I got lambasted by administration. So, what happened? Here we are. You know, now it's gotten so bad now, the people are coming in. Remember back years ago, we all had to kind of storm City Hall to get your attention. So I kind of feel like we have a little bit of attention, but I just wanted to remind you guys that this is not, historically, the way you've responded up until maybe today, is not the way that this problem needs to be dealt with. Because now this is second time around, and we can't keep doing this. So we really, I mean, this is serious, so thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the next is Kellyanne Cavaretta.
business owner out at Lowell Point, as well as a personal advocate of the economic and tourism development in our community. I am just here to say that if and when funds become available, I hope that council could consider a research and feasibility study on our wastewater system, because I'm not the person to go off hearsay, but I just, I'm having trouble finding answers about whether it's working and answers about the longevity of the system, not only for my business out at Lowell Point, but for our growing community. So if and when funds become available, I hope that we could put it towards finding answers. That's all.
Thank you.
Next is Matt Cope.
Hi, I'm Matt Cope. That was my wife. I too then own land inside and outside of city limits. It's weird being here on a Monday. All the restaurants are closed, and I still haven't made it to a city council meeting. And I know you guys never hear about things when things are typically running right, except for that really nice appreciation there. So it's a little bit awkward being here when things are going wrong. But first, I want to tip my hat off to Doug for going out to the lagoon, being present. He was at my property, gosh, it must have been like 8 o'clock at night on a Friday when he had a million places to be. And he was able to sit down and talk to me about all these things that we need to talk about here. But there aren't answers. And I'm sorry it only goes so far. And when we bought that property, we knew that we were 200 feet from the lagoon. But we bought that with the understanding that we could build our dream there, and that it would be taken care of. We knew that there might be a minor issue, but this is not a minor issue. Not to belabor the point, it's really bad. It's not something that can be ignored. It's something that is the absolute focus of what's there. When we started building out there, we didn't know that we were going to gain traction. We survived COVID, which was interesting. You know, we opened up, and then 1 week later closed down, and then made it through, which was something. And so to be hit with this is a little bit surreal, because this is something that can be managed. So we need finite answers, with a feasibility study with a finite end date, and then a call to action about how to resolve that. And if you guys need help from us, we're here. We can assist with that and get it going, but it does need to happen. We ended up, just to touch on that other point, I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and our spread of our cabins ended up in the center of that, promoting the Seward. That wasn't something we paid for, that was just something that, it was a very great picture, which was humbling, and that was great. But it's just, it is very hard to differentiate between Seward and Lowell Point. And I know that the pond is one of those topics that we'd like to sort of dance around with, because I mean, oh gosh, they're just complaining that it smells. But it's affecting our image, that we fought through COVID to get through, and it's affecting Lowell Point, and it's affecting, well, I mean, a lot of different things. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time. We have an 8-month-old at home, so apologies if we don't stick around for the meeting. And yes, apologies for a lot of things.
Madam Mayor, last signed in is Micah Van Busker.
Hello, Council. I'm Micah Van Busker. I live in town, and our business is out on Lowell Point. I'm also the president of Lowell Point Community Council, and we had our annual meeting last night. And it's a community council is a group of business owners, of property owners at Lowell Point and residents, and we meet regularly through the year, and we have bylaws or a corporation. We wanted to thank Doug for coming to our meeting on a Sunday night. He came all the way out to Lowell Point. He spent over an hour with us answering questions, talking to us, telling us things. I'm sure he had more important things to do on a Sunday night, but we really appreciated that. The current situation is improving, and that's huge. But we wanted to make sure that it doesn't just get forgotten now, and that I've been here for 25 years. That has smelled off and on, really awfully for the last 10 years. And it needs maintenance, it needs attention, it needs to be a really important thing to the city that is taken care of. It's not just in somebody else's backyard, which is our backyard. The sludge removal didn't happen for decades, and that was a big issue, and it doesn't need to get to this point before we take care of our facilities. This is a major facility of the city's, and we want it to be taken care of before it becomes an issue. issue. We would like to see continued maintenance and repair. Our businesses, our residents are suffering out there. They're getting horrible reviews. Visitors are leaving. We're hoping that it gets better, but we don't want it to be forgotten now. We want to move forward, and Doug mentioned that he's recommending a feasibility study, and we'd like to support that as the community council. Looking into the existing condition, how effective is it? It's 1950s technology from what we've understood. Maybe it's time to do something different. Maybe it's time to look into alternatives. What is its capacity? Nobody seems to really know. And what are its limitations? What can we put in there? Every summer, by the height of summer, it's awful out there, no matter what, even if there aren't any major issues. It's terrible. With all the new hotels and businesses and B&Bs, the numbers of people using a bathroom in Seward is exceeding the capacity. I can tell you that just based off living out there. Maybe there's an alternative or newer design. There's some solids filters ideas that might be valuable in keeping down the future sludge buildup. Additional and/or alternate locations is something we'd like to have seriously looked into. And then the future development of the city. Oh my gosh, and a privacy fence. We'd love to see just a fence there. And that was that side. I've only got 10 seconds. Last thing, cruise ship money. I wanted to just say I wasn't able to make that meeting. I've been on 4 or 5 different committees talking about recreational facilities. Our kids and our elders and our community we need something to recreate in that's covered because the weather is not conducive to that. And it would be, I love Chrissy's comment, let's do something showy and with a bang and build a covered tent with that money. Homer did it, Spark, look it up, $600,000. They built this awesome covered facility and they play soccer in there, basketball, roller skating, they do all kinds of things. Sorry.
Thank you. No, is there anyone else wishing to speak? Go ahead. I'll go to yours.
We have my extra time. This is going to be really fast because it's kind of repetitive. My name is Lisa Paisani. I'm also a property owner out at Little Point. We've owned since 2012. When we bought, we were told that they were probably going to get water out there. There's all this optimism and we were really excited, and so that was that time. So I'm not going to repeat everything people have said, but I'm just looking forward. You know, there's been all this history with it, but what really matters is going forward and what we can do about it now. And Soldotna was an example talked about last night with Doug. Really creative things. There's lots of solutions out there. But what we really need is a feasibility study. We have to get it going. It's got to be solid. It's got to be a solid plan to move forward. We're all together in this. I mean, so just please think of us as, you know, all one, and please approve this so we can get things fixed out there. Thank you for your time.
Former Councilmember Susie Towsley.
Hi everybody, I'm Susie Towsley. I have 8 pages of notes, but I'm not going to read them all, I promise. I live inside city limits. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm going to read them fast. I'm here to share my thoughts on a few items before you tonight and one that is not. So number 1, as a public service announcement, wearing my work hat, I'm here to use this platform to share the news that Seward's DVSA Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Program, after decades of being under Seaview's umbrella, will transition to our new home at the Seward Prevention Coalition on July 1st. We will continue to offer the same services to residents and visitors to the Seward area, including Moose Pass, Cooper Landing, and Hope, with services that include identifying resources, safety planning, legal advocacy, and personal advocacy to anyone who is or has experienced in the past domestic violence or sexual assault. Sadly, Alaska continues to lead the nation in interpersonal relationship violence, and we have seen increased numbers nationally with stress and uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. The crisis line will remain 362-1843, so I just wanted to get that out there. Taking off my work hat, and now my very personal Susie hat, putting that one on. I would like to speak in support of, in general support of the Hyper Group and their endeavors to reopen a daycare in town.
in the building on 4th, and I know that y'all are smarter than I am and have all the details and can work out what's the best way to do that, but I support that effort. It's hard for working class families to be here. Quality of life suffers when you don't have a safe place to leave your kids. My kids are beyond the point where I worry about that age-wise, but it's a critical issue. Now I would like to speak about resolutions I think it's 66 for the forensic audit. Some of you have been on council for a long time, and some of you are newer. I know that there are some people that would like to put this in our rearview mirror and not look into it deeply. And I am in full support of the forensic audit. Just looking around a little bit online today, I was able to see that the amount that we're saving by having less litigious management and our attorney's firm, just in the attorney's fees, is half of what the cost for this audit is. So I know that you guys can put your smart brains together and come up with the money. I know it's expensive, but I think it will help to establish more confidence in what goes on at City Hall and allow us to all move forward and heal together. And I think those answers are necessary. I also fully support, we have a lot of people visiting town. The weather's great. We've seen a lot of people in town. Feels like the 4th of July every weekend. Hope that continues, but that means toilets flushing, and those folks out at Lowell Point are really suffering with all those toilets flushing. Welcome to new management. Glad you guys are here. Have a great night. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I second it. Are there any changes? Vice Mayor Buckline.
I'd like to remove under C, other new business items, number 5 and number 6.
Thank you.
Can you state that? The title?
Number 5, non-objection to the liquor license renewal for the Yukon Bar. Number 1245, beverage dispensary. And number 6, approval of the liquor license for Mermaid Grotto Cafe. Number 5974, restaurant eating place, public convenience and restaurant designation permit.
I'll go ahead and remove ordinance 2021-005 from the consent agenda. Any other changes? So let's vote, please. Madam Clerk?
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Osenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Buckline,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
DeMoss,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved, and approved on tonight's consent is Resolution 2021-065, suspending the city's coronavirus state of emergency declaration. Resolution 2021-066, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Green Forensic Accounting Solutions LLP for forensic auditing services in an amount not to exceed $278,125 and appropriating funds. Resolution 2021-067, approving the Planning and Zoning Commission's priorities from January 2021 to January 2022. You have approved the May 24th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. You have a non-objection to the following liquor licenses. Gulf of Alaska Food Court, number 4915, restaurant eating place, public convenience, seasonal. CB number 5399, restaurant eating place, public convenience, seasonal. Sea Salt Alaskan Grill and Bar, number 822, beverage dispensary. And you have approved a new liquor license for Primrose Provisions, 5965, restaurant eating place, public convenience and restaurant designation permit. You have also appointed Liberty Miller to the Historic Preservation Commission with a term to expire May 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. Recognizing the retirement of Jan Melvin. If you can please come to the podium and I'll meet you there.
Embarrassing.
those stories.
Okay.
And let's see if I can get through this without getting emotional. But whereas Jan Melvin joined the City of Seward's finance team on December 6th, 1999, before moving to the fire department on May 27th, 2003, and where Janice is the executive assistant that serves the fire department, building department, and additionally supports budgets and processes for emergency management and volunteer firefighters. And whereas Janice is always first in her work and last to leave, as she strives to provide continuity to the fire and building code processes and procedures. Whereas Janice has been instrumental in positive changes to the fire and building departments through the many challenges and improvements over the years. Whereas Janice has successfully written and received numerous local, state, and federal grants for the fire department. And whereas Janice has been an integral part in forming and running the Alaska State Firefighters Association Local Phoenix Chapter. And I might say brought that organization here for a conference 1 year, more than 1 year? 2 years, so that's a great economic boom to the city.
And producing reports of permit activities. She has a knack for research. She has the ability to find things nobody else can find and find it fast. And she will, of course, be missed, but we're really excited for her being able to enjoy a brand new house at the Mozilla right next to the door to her son and grandkids.
Yes, so my time working with Jan has been short compared to some. But in that time, I've had the pleasure of working with someone who truly cares, not just for the fire department, but also our community. We in the fire department thank Jan for her many years of dedicated work and wish her well on her next chapter in life. Jan, you may be leaving, you will be missed, but you will not be forgotten. And that's it.
No? As Clinton so well said, you are my forever family, and that will never go away. I'm moving and new chapter, and I have no clue, the pages are all blank. So we'll see what pops up, I guess. Thank you all. It's with support that you do what you do, so it's not something I do alone. It's the way I can give back to the volunteers and the people that do what I don't do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Borough Assembly Report. I don't think that he's here today. Next on the agenda is the City Manager's Report, and that starts on page 5 of your packet. And I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Reporting purchase orders between 5,000 and 30,000 are the following. Itron 12S meters for 7,200. 2-inch and 4-inch steel conduit for the electric department, 15,548. Wire for the electric department, 15,182. For the harbor department, 8-inch angle broom for use at the harbor and at the Schmick for 7,410. For the police department, in-car tablet computers and associated installation equipment, 29,300. For the police department, dispatch chairs and patrol chairs, 5,844. Public Works applying crack sealant on selected roadways, 14,850. Also Public Works Low Point Lagoon Treatment, SRB Max 12-week application program, 13,725. And regarding the lagoon, I did want to report that I did talk to the engineer from R&M today. Doug's still there. I haven't even spoken with Doug yet. So a member of the engineering staff will be on site within the next couple of weeks. We'd want to do a check-in with how things are going right now as we're restoring the lagoon. So I did want to report that. We just want to make sure we're on the right track. So I wanted to report that, and at a future date, we'll bring other legislation to you regarding the lagoon.
I'll start with Councilman Pastrana.
When you guys go over to Soldotna to look at their public works, could you ask, one of the citizens referred to Soldotna's sewage lagoon, could you maybe inquire about that?
Sure.
Any other comments? So I'll just to clarify, so it sounds like administration's working on a potential feasibility study and then that will come back to council?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
in pertaining to the lagoon.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Cosner. I do have a constituent that was inquiring about chairs for the police department that were $450 a chair.
Madam Mayor, the chief is here, but part of it is, you know, especially for dispatchers, it's a 24/7 operation. And, you know, from sitting in a chair, we wanted to make sure it's ergonomical, and which helps them in their duties. But for further information, the chief is here.
So, Mayor and Council, the deal with these chairs is, the problem that I have with the regular chairs that we have is we buy a typical office chair, and I have to replace it every year, or if I'm lucky, I'll get 2 years out of it. So if you take a chair like that and you go price them out, you know, on your own, look at Sadler's, whatever, you take your pick. At best, I can usually find those for about $250 to about $400, which really the higher end is more realistic. And so what I did was I went out and did research and found 24/7 rated chairs. They have weight capacities that are 300 to 500 pounds. And I even found a specific chair that's made for police officers. I don't know if you've ever seen us come in here and try to sit in chairs like this with our gear on. The problem, I mean, besides not fitting in the chairs, is we tear them up. You know, the gun belt, I mean, just rips them to shreds. And we do the exact same thing to the patrol cars. So, yes, these chairs initially are very expensive, but the other big winning piece for these with me is they have a 10-year warranty. So, if you average out what I would spend normally and then compare that against the price of these chairs, we're actually saving money. And it's my expectation that I'll be retired and gone before anyone needs to replace chairs again. So the only thing that I would add to this is if we're very happy with these patrol chairs, I may buy a couple more because I want to have 4 working workstations in the patrol room. And I've only purchased enough right now to do 2. So, yeah, I don't know if you see the full breakdown in that, but we're getting 2 chairs for dispatch, which is, I have 2 dispatch positions, a chair for the deputy chief, a chair for the patrol sergeant, and then 2 chairs for the patrol officers. So, we'll see how this works. I'm going to monitor it and see how we really feel about these before I make any more decisions. But I hope you can understand, you know, yes, we could continue to do the cheap route and just replace them constantly and it doesn't really attract any attention. Or I can do something like this and hopefully get a product that's going to last us for a much longer period of time and save us money. So that's where I'm coming from with that. Any questions?
No, thank you very much. I think that's helpful for the public to hear. Thank you. Any other questions for administration? No, next on the agenda is city attorney report. It's nice to see your full face tonight. Welcome. Oh, did I miss something? Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay, there is something else with the city manager report, okay. Sorry.
Sit here and you're not gonna let me do it.
Sorry, Jackie.
No.
So part of the city manager's report tonight, we wanted to give you an update on what's happening at the Jesse Lee project as well as the Memorial Park. So this is in a couple different phases. So this is just to give you a heads up on where we stand right now.
with change orders that are going to be coming forward and things that, and why they're coming forward. So the project has 3 change orders currently, and they will be brought to you at your next council meeting. Just to give you a breakdown of how that works, the first change order was due to the stop work regarding the case that was filed against us by the Friends of the Jesse Lee home. That stop work order cost us $186,954.68. The change orders 2 and 3 are regard to the boiler room. This is where the boilers were. Upon removing them, first we found out that they had never been drained, so we did have to extract the bad diesel that was in them. And then once we got in there, they determined that and found an actual drain that had been draining into the ground. ADC is on site. We have had the samples tested. We're waiting for the remarks back for those. Right now, the estimated is removing 60 cubic feet. Yards, thank you. Cubic yards of material, just to make sure that the site is clean and has no hazardous materials. The other issue that we are having is, though we wanted to try to keep every tree on the property, there are trees that were planted after the building was built, and its weight structure, we've had a tree guy come and review it this weekend. So what's happening is this tree right here, their main structure is, their main root system is going along the actual concrete. Once we remove this concrete, we thought that we could add materials back in, but because of the weight of the tree and the way that their root system already is, it opens us up for the liability and the ability of them to blow over. So we are going to have to remove 6 of the trees. They are located off to the east of the property. Every single tree has a failing root system. 2 of them, the arborist had stated that they'll be dead within 3 years. And a lot of them are over 100 foot tall. And so we have to be concerned about, if the winds do happen to blow them over, what they would potentially hit. The next portion is giving you an update of where we sort of want to be with the park. This is the previous picture. These columns are still present on the Jesse Lee property. They are right up against the property line. So our goal is to clean those up, clean around them so you can see them from the park side. The Jesse Lee Memorial Park, I'm sorry, I don't know what this is. Let me just remove that. The park itself, we broke down into 5 different areas. So this is coming off of Benson. This would be a parking lot. My hope is that when we are done using these portable bathrooms that are able to be left permanent, to move one to this location. This is the closest location to water and sewer, so it sort of lays out. This just gives you a general overview. What I'm going to do is next go through and give you what these numbers mean. So the first is the Seward Community Garden Group has come and presented that they would like to lease an area of the Jesse Lee park to do a community garden. They have applied, and I'm not sure if they've received, but they've applied for a grant that would give them $10,000 a year for 3 years to build this layout of a community garden. The idea is to repurpose the fencing that is currently around Jessie Lee, around this location, as well as the dog park, which I'll show you here in a bit. This is just a proposed 3D image of what it would look like from the air. They want to do a long greenhouse along that far end. The high tunnel, this is what it would look like inside. And it's just another view from the garden. So proposed signage, one would be off of Benson, the other would be visible from the Phoenix Road. Our goal, we're working with a local artist to take a portion of the foundation after it's been abated, putting metal cutouts of children playing. This would be the side that had the sign, and then the back side would show another figure. We would be using, this would be a concrete pad, and then it would be installed on that concrete pad with the previous foundation. So this is just a concept design. Our other idea and thing that we are working on is working with historic preservation. If everyone remembers these corridors, they had very unique windows in them. We were able to save 2 of the frames and are trying to work with a gentleman to make us a mold of the frames and incorporate historic signage on them and place them basically in the same area of where that corridor was. So when you're walking from the park or from the parking lot, you would walk through what the corridor had been, where it had been standing. We've also, with the signs, incorporated a lot of the items that we could save. One being, well, 2 being the doors from the boilers. They're very unique, and the plan is to take those 2 indoors and incorporate them with a wood slab and making a bench throughout the park. We have a couple of the doors to do that, and then also incorporate a bench around 2 of the trees that we know were planted right when the home was built. They're planted far enough away that we can incorporate benches around them. The next area is a proposed dog park. It would be off of the parking lot. This area here could be for small dogs. If anybody's been to Anchorage and been to the Kincaid Dog Park, they have a very good area broke out. They have a small area for small dogs, and then they have the larger area for large dogs. And then, you know, they don't have any water on site. They have the pickups and everything. So we've incorporated that, as well as the ability to possibly purchase the equipment to go in a dog park. We've had a lot of people reach out, you know, number 1, wanting a dog park somewhere in Seward. Number 2, providing adequate toys and ability for them to do agility and those kind of things. So this is just a proposed idea. Again, using the fencing that we have. The poles were not put in concrete, so we can basically reuse the entire fencing, just placing it in a different configuration. And this is the large section of the dog park for large dogs, small. The next is the proposed playground area. If you look on the large map that's behind the mayor, that's number 5. The plan and idea is to incorporate some of the top lot that's on Dora Way's equipment, but then purchase equipment to make the park, the playground itself. This is sort of an idea of what it would look like. You know, it's not set in stone, it's just an idea. One other thing that I have is I want to say thank you to Carl Schaefermeyer, because he provided us with this really cool overview of what the park would possibly look like.
So are there any questions? I guess I have a question. So that grant has been fully expended, or what's the?
So right now we're at 80% of the job, but all funds will be expended by June 30th.
With those change orders?
With those change orders, yes.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
So this is all proposed, and I just don't understand what's happening with the land. I never have. I know we rezoned it to park, and now are we approving that this is what it's gonna look like?
What had to be put in with the grant?
A memorial, using part of the whatever funds were left, we had to place as a memorial and incorporate, if any, of the materials. And so our goal in incorporating that was, in order for a memorial to be a memorial, we had to place it in a park. So along those park lines, we've incorporated different portions of the building as well as the historical factor, building that memorial. And then one of the other things is currently trying to get with a gentleman to, when we remove the trees, our goal is to have them milled and then build an arbor that matches at the park as well as the cemetery. So we tied that memorial in to both locations that have a historical factor for the city.
Just the Jesse Lee section of the cemetery?
Yes.
Where we just have a sign now and?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, using the portions of those larger trees. I was trying to figure out what we could do with them, and that seems to be the direction that would work.
So I understand we're using the grant funding for signs, benches, and signs and benches?
And demolition of the,
And demolition.
yeah, the big majority of the cost is gonna be in your change orders. We're a little over, we're almost at $900,000 with the contract and the change orders.
I'd just like to see moving forward, you know, the positioning of all of this, being mindful that anything could happen on this piece of land, because, you know, we're in the middle of talking about muni lands. I mean, I know we rezoned it to park, but when we rezoned it, we were said we can always rezone it again. And so, you know, to make signs, benches, maybe just placing them on the outsides of it, or making them and placing them somewhere where they're movable, so that this can ebb and flow throughout time.
And one of the things, if I can just comment on that, just so everyone, well, I'm on a different picture, but behind the mayor, let me get into the right folder, I'm sorry. So this layout that we have, all of these items are something that could be removed. That's the purpose and the reason that I've placed them where they are is, you know, at one point we talked about if down the road a community center could be built, could this be where it could be built? And the thought process of myself and community development is all of these things are not permanent. Even the dog park, all of it could be removed, but expending the funds and making a city park also gives you the ability to apply for other grants down the road to do the things that you're asking, you know, like I said, a community center. A community center can still go here and you could even have those things incorporated with your community center if you got to that point. But everything here is not something that is actually permanent. The only thing is the memorial portions, which would be signage, and you could rezone a portion of it where we're setting those. You're always gonna need a parking lot. You're gonna need access from Benson, and you know, you can't, for transportation purposes, you can't add a parking lot right off of that corner on Phoenix. And then the other thing is, right here, this previous electric manager pointed out to me that these are your main transmission lines. To move one of them, you might as well consider $1 million. So if you want to put a roadway through to extend Benson all the way to Phoenix, you have to move 3 of those. And then you also have a 30-foot utility easement that goes through this property because you have main lines that come up here. And so it does cut that in, you know, it looks like a really large area, but what we're building over it and incorporating are all things that can be removed and or dug up if needed.
So I have a question. Well, so the community garden would have to come to us if they're gonna get a lease?
Yes.
So that would have to be approved?
Yes, yep, and they brought us these conceptual designs, and then, you know, they didn't wanna move any more forward. They wanted to wait and see what was happening with the park, if it was happening, and then they'll be bringing forward a presentation to you too.
Councilmember Olsenko.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I actually liked the presentation. I mean, it had everything that I thought I would want, living up there, with as close quarters as our houses are. It's not like you can sit there and take your dog in, you know, without interfering with everybody else's dog in the neighborhood, and it's just a place to take your dog would be good, let alone, I mean, my kids are all grown up, so the park is kind of a, well, I got grandkids coming though, but anyway. I just think that it's a great presentation, so.
Councilmember DeMoss.
I agree. I think it's a great presentation, so thank you very much. And then I also have a question about the grant money. Is the grant money covering the proposed playground and dog park?
So the cost involved in the dog park if we purchase, yeah, it's basically, we're paying to move the fencing. The fencing is within a smaller perimeter of the actual footprint of the park. So by repurposing that, you know, that would cost a lot.
Not my car.
So the idea behind even the dog park is, yes, we could put all those bells and whistles in it if we have funding. My biggest portion on this entire thing was, once we get done with all the change orders, if I have X amount of dollars left, then we would purchase the equipment as well as the stuff for the dog park. One of the things to talk about with the playground in general, in the CIP and in the Parks and Rec budget, is to update the tot lot that's on Dora. And so, you know, one of the plans and things that we had spoke about earlier was vacating that tot lot and moving that type of stuff to the Jesse Lee property.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm just still confused procedurally. Are we saying, yes, we love this presentation, and I don't understand where it came from? Did this come from planning and zoning? Was it voted on? Are we being presented this and we just say this is great and then it happens and there's no turning back? Like, can you just explain?
Yeah, so a lot of the concepts that are in this design were brought forward from the survey that was first given. You know, we asked one specific question there: what do you want to see done with the property? And so we took every idea out of that and incorporated it into your project. The proposal and the layout has been from community development, but it's the spending of the funds you know, so you guys, you as a council gave it the zoning of park. We were able to take it from there and incorporate the memorial portion of it, and then also incorporate the ability to, why we have contractors on site, why we have things happening, we can have them move fencing, and it's included in that cost. Because whatever we don't spend, the state is gonna take right back.
So with the Muni Lands plan that we looked at during the work session, the P and Z does have a recommendation for that Jesse Lee area. And it'll go be at their next regular meeting for adoption.
Yes, they are reviewing it one more time tomorrow night at our work session, and then it will be brought forward at our July meeting.
And then it'll come to council.
Yes,
This proposal,
In the Muni Lands
the
plan.
Muni Land Plan.
the whole Muni Land plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I got for you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the city attorney's report. Sorry about the false alarm earlier.
No problem. Good evening. And Ms. Bauer, good to meet you. I'm your attorney, Bruce Chandler.
We've talked quite often.
Presentation overlaps with Ms. Bauer's arrival. May was a fairly busy month for the legal department, but most of you are familiar with the most major effort that we undertook that month, which was the 2 appeals on the planning and zoning conditional use permit given to Seaview. So that took up quite a bit of time to both prepare for, participate in, and then finalize the written decisions on those. The other major work item for the legal department was resolving a employment grievance, and that's also been wrapped up. Then the third item that took a bit of our time in May had to do with interpretation of charter and code provisions in relation to a direction from the council to administration to issue a request for proposal for a accounting or finance, assistance on the finance department. So the issue there really was whether somehow limits on council direction to hire and fire personnel were breached, or how would that all apply to that particular request. So that took a bit of work. Other than that, some fairly routine things, lease assignment to look at. We did a little bit of work on the stipend ordinance that's before you this evening. Also took a peek at the resolution, I think, that suspends the COVID rules, but fairly minor things. And we also did another round of reviewing of a couple of applications for contributions to utility extension costs that are working their way through the system. And that is kind of the summary for April. Legal expenses were $9,545. Maybe about that same level, maybe a little bit more for May. And I can take any questions. I guess the other thing, just a preview of what's happening, I'm going to be down here again on Thursday and probably Friday as well to assist in working with the union contract updates for the collective bargaining agreement. So it's going to be a nice week for me to go to Seward twice in a week.
That's what we like to hear. Councilmember Castrante.
Can you elaborate on your findings of whether council can direct administration to hire a contractor as a CPA?
Definitely, the answer came back, yes, it's fine, because the council is not saying hire a specific individual. Basically, I mean, it's like all lawyers, I can make things a little more complicated than that, but that's kind of what it came down to. So I believe there's an RFP out now. Anyway.
Thank you. Any other comments from the city attorney? Well, we appreciate you coming down. We look forward to having you another couple days. I'm sure the fish running don't hurt with that, so.
Yeah, trying to figure out how that works out.
Yeah. All right, next on the agenda is other reports and announcement, 2021 Mountain Marathon Race Report by MMR Director Matthias. Welcome. Thank you for joining us
Hi
tonight.
everyone, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Matthias Sari, I'm the new Mount Marathon Race Director, working in conjunction with the Mount Marathon Race Committee, which makes the rules, and the Seward Chamber of Commerce, which owns the race and holds the purse strings. So I've been doing my marathon since 2007. Spent a lot of time in town and on the mountain. I live in Anchorage, but I have a lot of friends in Seward and no shortage of places to stay. I've left a little blood on the mountain, but not too much. So just wanted to give you an update on our race plans. We've been working with the city, trying to keep the city appraised. Stephen and I know Jason Bickling has been in contact with people here, but I haven't had the opportunity to meet many of you, so that was a good opportunity to do so. And fill you in on sort of our race planning. We're 24 days out. It's exciting and a little overwhelming. And we're expecting about 800 racers this year. It's a good number, a little down from past years. We offered sort of a blanket deferral this year to anyone that maybe wasn't comfortable with COVID, racing then, or if the date changed to July 7th was an inconvenience. Usually it's really hard to defer from the race. We're pretty strict about it this year. We had a liberal policy, and about 250 people deferred. But that said, we'll still have about 300 men's racers, 275 women, about 225 juniors. So we're thrilled to be back. Last year, canceling the race was a big disappointment. So one that we felt was necessary. It was the first cancellation since 1942, and hopefully we won't have to deal with that again. And then we sort of had a bit of a quandary, planning for this year's race. We had to make some decisions way back in February. It's hard to look ahead 4 or 5 months and see what the situation is going to be then. But one of the biggest changes we made was to move the race from July 4th to, which was on a Sunday, big holiday weekend with the 4th of July, to July 7th. We wanted to keep it the same general time frame, but move it to midweek. Really the biggest reason was the concern for big crowds and the difficulty of mitigating spectators in particular. So that was our plan, and we realized we weren't going to please everyone with that. Received plenty of support for that decision, but also some criticism. That said, the race is still going up and down an extreme mountain like it always has. It's still going to have lots of spectators. And we'll sort of have 2 large events with the 4th of July Festival happening, and then the race a few days later as opposed to one massive event. So some of the other changes we made, one was to go with wave starts. Typically we have just two waves of about 150 racers. This year we initially started out small with waves of 25, and then realized that we could open it up a bit more. So we'll have waves of 50 going off every 2 minutes. And it'll be a bit challenge to manage that to start, but pretty feasible. One other change we made was to eliminate indoor facilities. So normally we have bid pickup up at the high school. We have an auction. We have a big gathering indoors, and we decided long ago that wasn't prudent. So we'll be using our headquarters will be the lot there on the corner of Washington and 4th that the CLED Center generously letting us use. So we'll be able to use that for bid pickup, volunteer shirt pickup, volunteer check-in, things like that. So we're excited about that, and hope to get good weather so we don't get rained on outdoors. And then another change was initially we were going to have a mask policy where racers would need to wear masks before the race and after they finish, but not during. We recognize that that's no longer necessary, and that we're comfortable not requiring masks. Other than for our volunteers at the finish line, which is sort of the high-risk area, people breathing really hard, not knowing who's vaccinated or who isn't. So the volunteers at the finish will have masks, and anyone who's getting treated at the finish line. But otherwise, we ditched the masks. So yeah, I just want to thank the city for their support and for the permit, and you know, all the groups in town and all the volunteers. We're still looking for volunteers. It's a little challenging recruiting on a Wednesday. So we have a lot more information on our website, mountainmarathon.com, and be happy to answer any questions or if there are any concerns.
Are there any questions? I just want to make a comment. In 2019, we had the fires, and we had to cancel the junior race, which was just a blow to everyone. I remember being downtown that day and just being very thankful that we were holding the adult race, and then to have 2020 not have any race. I'm just very thankful as a town that we can, have the race this year, and I look forward to next year having it all be on the 4th of July again. So thank you for your hard work around that.
Yeah, those poor juniors missed 2 years in a row. So.
Yeah.
And there was one question I got before the race, or before the meeting. Yeah, we're definitely moving back to July 4th and planning on keeping it there indefinitely. So this is a one year change.
Good.
And Mayor Terry, actually I didn't have a chance to ask you before the meeting, but we would be honored if you would be our race starter for either the men's or women's race. I have to put you on the spot.
I'd be more than happy to do so. I'll connect with you later, but I'd be more than happy to do either or both or however it works. So, yeah, what a privilege. Thank you. Well, good. Thanks for coming and giving us the update. And if you could say that website one more time for the volunteers.
Yes, the website is mountainmarathon.com, and then there's a link up near the top, really easy to find. Just click on the volunteer bar and it'll direct you back.
Okay, or
there's
they
spots
can.
in town, there's spots on the mountain, there's all sorts of spots there.
Great. Exciting. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Next on the agenda is Happy Youth Programs and Educational Resources, presentation number 2 by Casey Warner.
Awesome. Hi, guys. My name's Casey. I am the president for Happy Youth Programs and Educational Resources. First, I just want to thank council and administration for hearing out my presentations and considering our proposals in addressing the child care shortage here in Seward. Hyper and the team, we've all been working over the last week to discuss and research some of the concerns that were brought up during the NCL work session, such as financial sustainability and staffing. With the gift from NCL, the conversation at the work session was maybe a split between childcare and housing development. So we kind of looked at what could happen if we were gifted the $500,000 from the NCL gift. And using those funds, Hyper would be able to work with our fiscal sponsor, Seward Prevention Coalition, to secure a commercial loan and would also allow us the opportunity to go after some other funding opportunities. We've identified a couple of larger grants, one being federal, one being state, that the $500,000 would really help us in securing those funds. We did prepare another operating budget that Christiana is going to present to you guys today and just kind of speak a little bit more on the numbers. So I'll let Christiana come up and talk to that.
Thank you, Casey. I will now basis over 3 years. We will be seeking funding for the child care administrator's salary through this grant opportunity. The Child Care Center will participate in the State of Alaska Child and Adult Care Food Program, as well as the State of Alaska Child Care Grant Program. which is listed on the budget as Alaska Food Program and State Attendance Grant respectively. These programs have been stable and consistent sources of funding to help stabilize other child care operations. The Alaska Child and Adult Care Food Program will assist with program food costs and the child care cook salary. The State of Alaska Child Care Grant Program will reimburse up to $50 per month for each child that the child care facility cares for, and can be used for staff salaries and benefits, health and safety costs, supplies, equipment, and activity costs, child development, education, and training. The State of Alaska is preparing to release a child care and development block grant with an estimated total program funding of $73 million. The date of release and application period is still to be determined, but we are tracking the communication related to this grant opportunity closely. Casey Warner, the chair of HYPER, is beginning discussions with Help Me Grow Alaska and the Alaska Early Childhood Comprehensive System about opportunities for support and partnership. At 100% capacity, the Child Care Center will be able to operate with minimal financial loss that can be covered by fundraiser efforts. At 75% capacity, the greatest amount of local funding would need to be secured. This is because we will need to hire an additional child care staff member that would be available to classrooms to comply with State of Alaska child care licensing child-to-staff ratios where needed. At 50% capacity, local funding would need to be secured as well. Some of the identified local funding opportunities that will be sought as needed come from the Seward Community Foundation, which has already written a letter of support for the HYPER organization and child care project. The Providence Alaska Foundation's annual community partnership grant, and discussions are beginning with the Boys and Girls Club of the Kenai Peninsula on a possible partnership. Casey Warner will now speak to how we are working toward addressing the possible staffing barrier.
You know, staffing is an issue for all of Seward, and not just in the child care realm. But some of the ways that we intend to address that is we'll work with our fiscal sponsor, Seward Prevention Coalition, who has a long-standing history of employee retention, not only within the organization, but also in helping other organizations hire support staff. Namely, the elementary school this last year, they hired, I believe, 12 staff to help support the elementary classrooms. And they've also worked with the Boys and Girls Club in the past. So I'll really be looking towards the leadership within SPC to help with what it is that they do for employee retention. We will be working with our state partners, THREAD, which we do also have a letter of support from them, as well as the University of Alaska system, to develop a professional developmental track for individuals employed at the Child Care Center to continue their education in the early childhood education field. An investment into the team members will help sustainability and long-term growth within the center, and promoting this position as a career and not just as a job. We've already identified potential and qualified community members who are interested in being employed at the Child Care Center once we are able to open up our doors. We have the potential of writing for the Community Economic Development Project Grant, which had just come across my desk recently. Starting the conversations with the chamber to be able to apply for that grant. Christiana had mentioned it's got a floor of $100,000 and a ceiling of $800,000. It is addressed in the grant proposal that childcare is an issue in economic development, and so that's a barrier that they've already seen, and they're putting that out for proposals. Once the chamber votes at their upcoming Thursday meeting, if they choose to vote in our favor to partner with us, we will be moving very quickly since that does have a deadline of July 12th. And with the $500,000 gift from NCL, that would really give us a foot forward in being able to secure those federal funds. So I really appreciate everybody's time and the consideration of this project and supporting Seward's family. Anybody have any questions?
Councilmember DeMoss?
else.
Yeah, I have a question about some of the grants. So like the Murdoch grant, is that something that you would get every year?
So the Murdoch, grant, we just learned about that, about 2 weeks ago, and so we are starting looking into it, and their strategic, grant that they offer, is a grant that is a declining basis, so they fully fund for 100% the first year, and then it's about 66% the second year, and then about 33% the third year. So the Murdoch grant would not be something that we would necessarily apply for every year, but if we were awarded the strategic grant, it would cover over 3 years on a declining basis.
And that would give us a couple of years to be able to get ourselves established and get our financials up and running. So the Murdoch grant would specifically cover the administration cost and their salary 100% for the first year, like Christiana mentioned, and then it would decline over the next 3 years, and hopefully, we would continue to address that and be able to move forward.
And then just one other quick question. Do you have any other are there other, I'm not very familiar with the grants that are available for childcare and that kind of thing, but I guess obtaining grants would just be an ongoing thing that you guys, the organization would always be working on?
Yeah, and I've been working with, there is a statewide early childhood network that I've been a part of for probably just about 8 months now. And talking with some of the other individuals from around the state that operate childcare center, that is a big piece of being able to sustain a childcare, unfortunately, is obtaining and securing other financial means through grants.
Do we know what the chances are or percentages are of being able to rely on those grants on an ongoing basis?
We would have to ask our accountant, as well as, like Casey said, it's just going to be an ongoing, there's new grants that come up, both on the federal, the state, and the local level. So it's going to be one of those continuous keep your eye out.
And there is a large amount of funds at the moment that the state of Alaska is taking in from the federal government that are allotted for childcare. They just haven't released yet when those dates are going to come out or how much it's going to be set for each specific region.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilmember Osenga?
You mentioned, and I might have this phrasing wrong, but you said community funding every year to help with your, and I might be not remembering or saying that right.
Yeah, so it would really depend on the capacity that we were at. That would identify how much local community funding that we would have to seek after. And so just locally, we know available, there's the Seward Community Foundation that's already, offered a letter of support that, we could apply to, from a mini grant for, educational supplies, to, one of their annual grants, that we could apply for. And then, Providence, Alaska's foundation, has been having an annual community grant period as well. So those are just the identified that we know of right now, but we will continue to search. This is basically what we have been able to find over the last couple of months, and specifically the last couple of weeks, as we've had the conversation of the NCL funds.
Okay. And it's not on the spreadsheet, the community?
It's under local funding.
Local funding?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, sorry. So under,
All right.
the local funding, and so it just depends on the capacity. Like I said, 75% capacity, because we would have to have an additional staff member available to go where the staff to child ratio is needed. We would have to have an additional staff member, and that's why 75% capacity has a larger local funding budget line.
Councilmember Coscarelli?
Just for clarification, I know you said this in your presentation, but the mortgage is based off of, this number is borrowing how much?
We would have to,
I just saw it in your notes.
yeah,
It was a down payment of $100,000 and then, right?
No, I believe the down payment, we would really have to ask our accountant about the
Okay.
specifics, but I believe what came back, from SBC's, bank, is that there would be a 30% down, and I think we were looking, at, just plugging into the calculator, mortgage calculator, at a $700,000 purchase price. And so, yeah.
And
But
that-
the specifics would, yeah, we
And that
probably
includes
wanted-
taxes and insurance.
So the insurance, I believe, was an additional line, it might have been, property insurance is an additional line.
Okay.
But we believe that would be, typically mortgages include,
Right.
the insurance and property taxes and whatnot. It is a separate line item on here because we really wanted to give you, kind of a very, conservative, figure of what reality we're looking at.
Thank you. Very good, thank you. Councilmember Cease?
Okay, I was going to write down, you said the wages for the manager, admin was 25. The lead was how much?
22
Okay, and then for staff?
would be 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then that 15% fringe, is that in covering insurance or anything, or is that just part of your taxes? You wouldn't have to pay that many taxes out of your pocket?
The fringe, I believe is the benefits for the employees, or it might be the SBC's fiscal sponsorship. I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
Because out of your
right now.
pocket, you'd have to pay 7.65% on their social security, and you'd have to pay 1 or 2% on state, or you'd probably be paying 3% on state unemployment, and then a little bit for federal unemployment.
Right,
But if you're a nonprofit, you might not have to pay some of that.
Yeah, and a lot of these figures, they are at the upper range of what we're looking at, because again, we really want to give a reality picture of what we may be looking at,
Okay.
as far as the budget goes. So some of these items, they're either, if there is a range, it's either at the high, mid, or upper level of what figures we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, I can see you've done quite a bit of work since the last time you came, so we appreciate the due diligence. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public hearings. We have one resolution for public hearing. It's Resolution 2021-064. Madam Clerk, could you read the title into the record, please?
Resolution 2021-064 is amending electric rates and charges and developing a new industrial rate based on a cost of service allocation as recommended in the rate study conducted by the financial engineering company.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-064.
I'll second it.
Thank you, and I'll turn it over to administration for presentation and comments. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Mayor. For a recap to our May 10th work session, I just want to provide a brief summary of the rate study itself and the recommendation from that study. The study, we actually began it before the end of last year, 2020, and as it was said by the clerk, it was conducted and led by Mike Hubbard from the Financial Engineering Company. The study assessed rates that we've covered in the work session based on cost of service for the various customer groups. That's an industry standard way of looking at rates and rate making, and it ensures fair and equitable rates for all the customers. When we went through the study, it really came down to 3 factors that were driving all of our recommendations. The first is the special contract of the Alaska Sea Life Center. That contract has in the past and still today impacts the rates of really all of the other customers. So that was the first factor that kept coming up. The second factor is the need for a new industrial rate for Seward's 3 largest power users. The 3 largest users here in Seward, they use so much more energy than the next group of customers that it does not make sense for those customers to be lumped in the large general service, which is a higher rate. So having an industrial rate will give them a lower rate from which to operate, again, because of their high usage. And third, in looking at it, the residential customers on their base rates, they're actually still underpaying from a cost of service perspective, and so that was something we wanted to look at. With those factors in mind, we recommend moving the Sea Life Center to the full cost of power adjustment. That is the direct pass-through from Chugats Electric that really every customer should be responsible for paying. The increase with the COPA to the Sea Life Center will be about 3.25 cents. And that will result, and that's per kilowatt hour, and that will result in about $12,500 a month more than what they're paying today. At the same time, the change to the COPA will actually slightly reduce the rates for all of the other customer groups. So that is something important to consider. For residential customers, the decrease in the COPA, with the Sea Life Center paying the full COPA, the decrease to residential will be around $2 for average usage during a month. Now, this is important because another recommendation that we want to make is a small increase in the residential base rates by approximately $2 a month. So that moves the residential customers closer to the cost of service, but that $2 increase in the base rates is offset by the $2 reduction in the COPA that they will experience. So it's really a net zero for residential customers. We also recommend creating, as I said, the new industrial rate for the 3 largest power users. That would be JAG, that would be Icicle, and it would be the Sea Life Center. And in setting that rate, we would come in and set it at about 5% below the cost of service. For JAG and Icicle, they will experience a decrease due to the reduced base rate as well as the reduced COPA. For the Alaska Sea Life Center, as we noted earlier, they'll actually see an increase due to the full COPA, and in moving over to the new industrial rate, they'll also see a slight increase on the base rates that they pay. Our next recommendation, we recommend no change in base rates for small general and large general service commercial customers, but they will still see a small decrease in their overall bill because of the reduced COPA. Same thing with the boat harbor. We're recommending no change in base rates, but the boat harbor will also see a small decrease, again because of the reduced COPA. Finally, with any changes that if the council approves the changes, we would ask that they be implemented in January of 2022. And that, the reason for that is the Alaska Sea Life, their special contract runs through the end of this year. So it just makes sense to begin the changes at that point. In wrapping up the summary, again, the one issue that just kept coming up that was giving us difficulty was the fact that the special contract of the Sea Life Center is affecting the rates of the other customers, and in some way it needs to be dealt with. When the Sea Life Center, if the actions here are approved, begins paying in January, the COPA for all the other customer groups will go down, and that will benefit certainly all customers, but in particular the other commercial customers. If Seward Electric was a regulated utility, it would be highly unlikely that a special contract would ever have been done. Regulatory commissions typically do not like special contracts or special rates for one customer because it ends up throwing things out of whack. And that's kind of where we are today, is the special contract has thrown the rest of our rates out of whack. So that's why we're making the recommendations that we are. Now, having said that, I don't think anyone in the room would argue that the Sea Life Center is a huge asset for the city of Seward.
and the people that live here. I know that we have a number of people that come in and stay at my wife's business that she's running that look forward to their trips to the Sea Life Center. I don't think anyone can say that it's not valuable to our community. So the electric department, in working with the Sea Life Center and to help with the transition to the new industrial rate, we agreed to phase in the base rate portion of moving them to the industrial rate over 3 years, beginning in January of 2022. And we also have agreed to lower our margin of the electric department by $75,000 in year 1 to help soften the financial impact to the Sea Life Center. And then this $75,000 amount will be reduced each year until 2025. And at that time, the Sea Life Center would then begin paying the full industrial rate as they make that transition. And they would be in that rate along with JAG and Icicle. I'll just wrap up by saying that the process of going through this and preparing for the public hearing certainly has been a learning process for me. And I apologize for the late laydowns that came in. But the last laydown, which was the updated tariff, those numbers are right. And those are the numbers that we would recommend here today. And so with that, I will close it out.
Thank you. So before we ask questions, we go to public hearing and then we'll come back to council. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for Resolution 2021-064. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed in?
We have one person, and it's Linda Podcat.
Hi, Linda Paquette, outside city limits. I sat on the committee with Mr. Montgomery as he tackled this problem. And I just want to say that I feel like the city of Seward is so lucky to have this gentleman working for you. Because where is Phil Calusa when you need him, right? Where is the can that sits on the dais that we've been kicking down the road? This is a part of that can. And I'm so happy, and I really hope it passes, because as hard as it is going to be for the Sea Life Center to adjust to these new rates, they can pull off miracles, because they were looking for $3 million, they got $4 million. So this $100,000 in this first year, which is the worst year, the first one is the worst one, that's going to be easy to fundraise. I really believe that. And it's important, I really think, for the city. I keep wearing this shirt to these meetings. Not left, not right, but forward. And this is one of those things that really needs to happen to enable the city to move forward in the right way and in a fair way, right? So, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is anyone else signed in?
No, ma'am.
So I'll check anyone wishing to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Terry, members of council. Chair Reamer again, inside city limits, speaking on behalf of the Sea Life Center. After all that introduction, you're probably not that surprised to hear from me. As you heard, the main effect of this tariff is to raise our rates quite significantly and either keep the same or decrease everyone else's rates. And just lower significantly the rates of 2 other industrial customers, including one of which who was on that citizens panel that helped craft the new tariff structure. You shouldn't be surprised that we're in this situation. The reason the city's in this situation is that a previous council got rid of the industrial rate back in like 2013 or something. And I don't know why. I actually wanted it even before that, but that's why we're here. That went away, and the Sea Life Center was put on a special contract because we're the largest user in town, and we always have been, and we have a very unique structure. We pump water 24/7, 365. We're the cheapest to serve in this town. Our power doesn't do this like Icicle and Jack do. We run very, very, very consistent. So, right, we're not paying our fair share. Council decided in 2015 that we were going to be on a 10-year plan to get onto the tariff structure. I reminded council about this in the work session last month. And what's being proposed tonight eliminates that 10-year good faith agreement that we've been relying on for our budgeting planning. So while we wish that the city of Seward would uphold that agreement that a previous council made, I know it wasn't this council, and you can make whatever decision you want, and it shows on page 51 of your packet that the plan was for this extension to go through 2027, and by 2027 we would be on the tariff. However, the industrial rate's important, and for that reason, we don't really object to the resolution. I'm not going to say I support it, but I'm going to say we're not objecting to it. The main result of the tariff, as I said before, is to increase our rates dramatically by 14% next year. And then gradually by about 4 to 5% per year after that, which is the structure we've been on. We've been on a 5% per year rate since 2015. So it's about $100,000 in the first year. It could have been a lot worse. And so I wanted to thank Mr. Rob Montgomery, your electric utility manager, for working with us professionally and courteously, regardless of whether we agreed or we didn't agree through the process. He worked towards a compromise transition that is faster than we wanted, but smoother than what it could have been. So my final point is I want to make sure that what you're voting on is correct. So as Rob mentioned, there were a couple laydowns today. There was a red line version, there's all these different versions. So I would like council to amend the final and clean version with some red lines. And the reason for that is the version that came through finally includes some confidential sea life center data that should not be in the tariff. It also includes some extraneous data that doesn't need to be in the tariff. And then there's another part that is more of an editorial thing to make sure that there's no confusion. So I do have a red line. I previously provided Brenda. I have multiple copies of this that I can give to you. And if I could with my one, I can just kind of quickly go through this. If you're looking at the final and clean version, it's page 3 of that. And I believe Brenda's handing this around. But the second line on here, crossing out the first half of that row, as well as the transitional industrial rate applicable to any LSC 4, should be struck, because the rates are applicable for 2022, 2023, and 2024. That phrase, I don't know why it's there. And then on the table below, I request to strike the column that says present, because that's not part of the tariff. Your tariff is for 2022, 23, and 24. I request you strike the column that says 2025, because again, that's the industrial rate. It clearly says above that we're subject to the industrial rate as of 2025. And I request that you remove the 4 last rows, assumed COPA, monthly cost of power, and monthly increase, because those are unnecessary lines and provide the monthly cost of power really should be confidential sea life center data that should not be shared with the public. So that is my request to council. Again, wanted to thank your staff, administration, department for working with us on this process. And quickly, I forgot, I wanted to just really quickly introduce our CFO, Walter Young, who had started right in the beginning of the pandemic, and so hasn't met a lot of people in town, so.
No mask, thank you.
I know, I was gonna say, this is how I think Walter looks like.
Yeah.
So we're still in public hearing, and I'll just double check with you to make sure no one provided written comments.
No.
And then I'll just look to the council, or excuse me, council chambers and see if there's anyone else that would like to provide public testimony. Okay, seeing that, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and I'll turn it back to administration first, and then I think council had some comments.
Yeah, I just had one comment. I just wanted to also say and reiterate what Tara did at the podium, is I appreciated the professionalism of Tara and her team as we worked with them on this. As she indicated, we didn't always agree, but I think we worked hard at it, and we've developed a rapport and a relationship that I think we can carry forward. And having said that, I had indicated to Tara earlier today the red line changes that she was just asking for, I am fine with. I have no objection. Yes.
And then Councilmember Casagrande, I'll go to you first because I know you had a question.
Let me find it. Rob had mentioned the electric department has agreed to lower its own margin by $75,000. Could you elaborate? Kind of, does that mean that you're going to lower their SPU charge, or?
Yeah, we're cutting the $75,000 off of our margin, and simply we were looking to build in a little more margin for different things. So we cut $75,000 out to soften the financial blow to the Sea Life Center. In year one, it'll be $75,000. In year two, as they progress to the second tier, it'll drop to approximately $55,000 in that range. And then in year three, it'll drop another $25,000 to $30,000 to about $25,000, and then they will reach the full industrial rate in 2025.
So just to clarify, because I have to think of everything in SPU and COPA. So basically, you're going to not charge them $75,000 worth of the SPU, essentially?
We're taking it out of our, what we would have made in revenues, we're cutting our own revenues, not just from them, but from our entire customer base by $75,000.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the red line changes to the tariff as provided to the clerk.
I'll second that.
Can I ask you to adopt the version of the tariff that is the final and clean version that was provided in the laydown?
Yeah.
With those amendments?
I'll do that. Sure. My motion is to adopt the final and clean version to include the amendments.
Thank you. Might second that. Still.
And so discussion on that, I mean, I feel like it's a request from the Sea Life Center. There's no objection from the electric utility manager. I think that that's easy enough to accomplish. So unless there's further discussion, Madam Clerk?
Voting on the motion to amend, Buckland,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Thank you, that amendment is approved.
Main motion is
Back
back
on the floor.
for further discussion, questions to council, or questions to administration. Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to say again, thank you to Rob and Tara and the citizen board that got together to figure all of this out. In watching civic things for a long time, things have not gone this smoothly. So it's really positive to see that things are moving in a direction where everyone can communicate and move forward to solutions in a kind manner.
Any further discussion?
Mayor?
City Manager.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, as a new city manager, I really want to express my appreciation for Rob and the work that he's done, and also for the Sea Life Center who we met with and were able to talk through issues, and we really appreciated that meeting, and thank you, Rob. And thank you, council, for all the work you've put into it long before I got here. So, thank you.
Madam Clerk, call for the vote.
Voting on the resolution 2021-064. Osenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Buckland,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Thanks to all. Next on the agenda is new business items. We have an ordinance for introduction, and it's just a motion for introduction once we read the title into the agenda. It's ordinance 2021-005.
Ordinance 2021-005 is amending Seward City Code 2.10.100, compensation of council members, to adjust monthly stipend amounts to reflect the 50th percentile for compensation in the Kenai Peninsula Borough and enacting Seward City Code Section 2.30.230 to establish a stipend for planning and zoning commissioners.
Need a motion and a second for introduction
I
only.
move to introduce ordinance 2021-005.
I'll second it.
Madam Clerk, did you want to just kind of go over what it's proposing?
Sure. Last fall, actually, Acting City Manager Regis, myself, and Assistant City Manager Sol were talking about this with some other folks that were interested, and we did a little research. We looked back into history. 1986 was the last time any change in the stipend, permanent change was done. 1996, an ordinance was brought forward and approved and then reconsidered and subsequently failed. So the stipend amounts have not changed for council members since 1986. The research is included across the peninsula, so you can see where other communities, what levels they pay at. And the Planning and Zoning Commissioner stipend was at the request of Councilmember DeMoss, as she's the P&Z liaison, and was interested in providing for a stipend for Planning and Zoning Commissioners.
Well, I'm just going to make the comment that I pulled this off the consent agenda because I'm not in favor of the council increase, and I'm also not in favor of a stipend to planning and zoning commissioners, and that's just because I feel like this is more of a volunteer opportunity and that we should keep the reimbursement as as small as possible, and that's the only argument I have. So I'm going to be voting against the introduction.
And I absolutely agree. I started on planning and zoning in 2008, I guess, and then went with the borough with their hefty $400 a month stipend. But this is community service, and whether we get another $100 or not, basically the $200 a month goes into my fund to give away. So if this did happen, certain nonprofits in Seward would get more money, but I don't think that this is something that we should do. And so I'll be voting against introducing.
I don't know if there's further discussion, or we can just
I
go for a
vote.
vote. Go ahead.
I am in full support of this. One of the reasons why I am in support of this is because I do understand that this is a volunteer role, and I think even at the compensation that we do receive for the time that I put in, I feel that I still am volunteering a lot of my time. I also feel that without this, I could possibly not be here because I couldn't afford the time off of work and things that I have to do for my personal time. And I think that's an important thing to look at diversity in this board, and if the community values diversity, then they will reach out to their council and voice their opinion, because if we have people who can't afford to be on this board, then there'll be a lot of people who can just afford to be on this board. There's a lot of other things that I volunteer for and that I'm passionate in my life for as well, and that I give of myself. We could possibly have more single parents on here that could afford to pay childcare to have their time to be on here and to serve on this board. So if you value diversity and if you value inclusion in our community, then you will reach out to your council members and you will tell them that you support this. And I would like to share that with my council as well, to take that into consideration, that people's time is valuable, and the time that we commit is valuable. I think even sometimes at $400, a lot of the time that we put in personally too is still a volunteer position. So people can take what they want from that. Personally, being on council has affected me a lot as well. And it's affected a lot of people personally too. There's a lot of other things not monetary that people go through being on council. So it softens the blow sometimes a little bit. And I admire Councilmember McClure's donations to the community. And maybe a lot of other people will benefit from that other than her, which will be great for the community as well. So those are my thoughts, and I will be voting in support.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Rosenberg?
Yeah, and I think I would vote in favor of discussing this, only because, I mean, if there hasn't been a change since 86, I mean, come on, that's 30-some years ago. I'm not gonna do the math real quick, I'll probably end up being wrong anyways. And I would just be in favor of it, just to have the discussion, maybe not for these amounts, but something. It wouldn't hurt, I don't think. I think it's time.
Councilmember Demas?
I just want to absolutely say that I 100% agree with everything that Vice Mayor Baclon said.
Councilmember Cease?
I agree also. I think that when you, especially the last 3 or 4 years, well, since I've been on, it isn't just 2 hour meeting on Monday night or 3. We have meetings after meetings after meetings, and there's a lot of times that we volunteer for other things besides just for council. And I would be in support of having a discussion on it.
Any other discussion? Councilmember?
Since we're going around the dais, I'll just say that I'm all ears. I know when, 10 years ago when I first got here as a single mother, there was no way I'd be able to do this without a $200 stipend. I've grown in that time, and I could go either way. I mean, I don't need the money, but then to just, after listening to Vice Mayor Baclon, I mean, do we want diversity, or do we just want people that can afford to be here? And I think that it's important that members of the public feel that they're supported. I will say my phone number is 362-2299. And if anybody wants to text me, whether they feel in support of it or out of support of it, I would definitely be all ears to listen and take that in for sure. But I want to see it introduced, and I want to see the discussion for sure.
Okay, I'm convinced. We'll introduce it. And my number is 4910828, and I really want to hear from people about this.
I would like to ask administration, if we set the salaries, are we required to take it at the level? Because there are tax ramifications. I mean, I'm happy to donate. We do make a lot of donations as a family, but I would like to find out if we're required to take it at the new level. And then I also want to say I volunteer for a lot of different things, and this is the only thing that I get paid for. So, being away from my family, there's no amount of money that can replace that. So I'm definitely doing this, as a volunteer, as my civic duty. And I would hope that regardless of the pay level, people continue to do so. One of my concerns is, I don't want this to become at a level that it's another job for someone. I really want people to be dedicated and want to do this because of the civic aspects, which everyone on this council absolutely is here for that reason, and I would like that to continue. So I will vote to introduce it because I would also like to hear how people feel about it. That was just my initial reaction. 422-7071, which my number's everywhere because everyone always texts me and calls me, so they should have it by now. Further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Voting on the introduction of ordinance 2021-005. Baclon?
Yes.
Bosenga?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Casagranda?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That ordinance has been introduced and will come for public hearing and enactment on June 28th.
Okay, next on the agenda is the non-objection to the liquor license renewal for Yukon Bar number 1245 Beverage Dispensary. And prior to that motion, I know you pulled it off the agenda, or off the consent.
I pulled that off the consent agenda just in an overabundance of caution that I work at the Yukon Bar. However, my salary is not dependent. I guess it would be. But I work there 1 day a week. So I have potential conflict.
Okay, I am gonna go ahead and rule that you do not have a conflict. So before we take that up, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 9:10. call us out of recess. And just to recap, Vice Mayor Baclan has been ruled to not have a conflict of interest. There was no objection from the rest of council. And now I'm going to go ahead and make the motion of non-objection to the liquor license renewal for the Yukon Bar, number 1245 Beverage Dispensary.
I'll second it.
And I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on non-objection for the Yukon Bar, cease.
No, I don't have an objection. So I say no objection, yes. I don't want, they can have us. Yes. I didn't know which way I should say it.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Bosenga,
Yes.
Baclan,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the liquor license for the Mermaid Grotto Cafe, number 5974, restaurant eating place, public convenience and restaurant designation permit. And Vice Mayor, you pulled that off the consent.
I also work there. And through the advice of our attorney, I feel that I do not have a conflict of interest. Out of an overabundance of caution, I am declaring a potential.
Thank you. I'm going to rule that you do not have a conflict of interest. Is there any objection? And then at this time, I'll make a motion to approve the liquor license for the Mermaid Grotto Cafe, number 5974, restaurant eating place, public convenience and restaurant designation permit.
I'll second it.
And then, Madam Clerk, will we call for the vote, please?
Voting on the approval of Mermaid Grotto's liquor license, cease.
Yes.
Baclan,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
So, in our packet, but not for any action items, we have informational items and reports. We do have a letter from the City of Obahiro Mayor canceling the 2021 in-person student exchange program. He wrote a very nice letter. While we understand the need for the cancellation, it's also sad for our youth and our communities, and we're looking forward to getting back to that program. City Clerk memo verifying timely receipt of City Manager's financial disclosure statement. Overview of the 2021 City Representatives, Councils, Liaisons, and Committees. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding those items? No. Next on the agenda, Madam Clerk, citizen comments. There is no sign-in for this comment period, so I'll just look and see.
I have.
Oh, you have some. Let's do written, and then we'll come into the chambers. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so I have one citizen comment written from Carol Griswold. Dear Council and Administration, COVID-19 is not over, nor is the risk to Council, Administration, and public at City Hall meetings, especially as the town is overwhelmed with visitors. I encourage Council to continue to provide the option for the public to call in and submit comments in writing to be read by the clerk, in addition to attending in person. I appreciate that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly offers in-person, telephonic, written, and Zoom options to maximize the opportunities for the public to participate. Their meetings go very smoothly with all these opportunities for public participation. I feel our city government has greatly minimized the options for the cautious public to participate remotely in real time. YouTube and radio are non-participatory, passive, and completely eliminate real-time public input at work sessions. I understand the city's Zoom contract is current for all of 2021. What is the additional cost for IT to attend work sessions, including P&Z, HP, and council? If Zoom is not affordable, please keep the base level of allowing the public to call in and submit comments to be read into the record, whether or not the city is subject to a state of emergency declaration. And that is the only comment I have.
Great. I'll look into Ms. Towson.
Susie Towsley again, Inside City Limits. Three things. Let's see if I can get them all in 5 minutes. Just kidding, I'll go faster. So one, I agree with what Ms. Griswold is saying. It's going to be a slow process while we all kind of get used to being able to come together. And whatever way that we can help people that aren't comfortable to be able to come together or might be immunocompromised, I totally support that, and I think you guys should consider it. Two, I think it's important that working class people have the opportunity to serve on council if elected, and that increase in the stipend, since it hasn't been increased since 1986, could go a long way to help make sure that you have a diverse group of people in those seats. And I totally appreciate the work that you guys do, and I know that even if it is increased, you're not getting paid very much per hour. I remember when Cheryl we were trying to talk her into putting her name in the hat, and it was like, it's only a couple of hours a week. After the first month, she was like, and then I had cause to review some stuff online from a couple years ago, and then I find myself here tonight, and I just need to say how much healthier and functional this space feels for me, returning to it. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the professionalism of the people in the room that have brought that energy here and worked through some of the drama that is behind us, it seems now. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Christiana?
My name is Christina Smith and I live outside city limits, and I just want to say how wonderful it is to be back in this room attending these meetings and being able to speak my citizen comments instead of emailing them in and deciding whether or not they're pertinent to be read aloud by our city clerk, which the response during the pandemic to have multiple outlets was wonderful. I enjoyed watching the city council meetings on YouTube from the comfort of my couch in my home. I do really appreciate being able to attend work sessions and the city council meetings in person now, and being able to decide at a moment's notice to stand up and address the dais. So I just want to say thank you and how good it feels to be back. And then also I want to speak to increasing the stipend. I will not be available to attend the June 28th meeting, so I want to give my comments now that yeah, I believe that it is necessary. It's been almost 40 years, good math. It's been almost 40 years since it's been evaluated and increased, and I agree with everybody's comments from reasons why not to increase it to reasons to increase it, and I believe that it does need to be looked at, and I believe the information in the packet and setting it at a 50th percentile of the borough is very conscientious in the expenditure of city funds. So I just want to give my support for increasing the stipend for council members so that we can have those who want to sit on council be able to sit on council. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hello, it's Tara Reamer again, inside city limits. 2 blocks off the hill, actually. Why didn't I walk? My excuse for not volunteering at Mount Marathon is this brace on my ankle, so I was going to tell Matthias, sorry, not this year. I just wanted to say I agree with Christiana about the stipends. I think Councilmember Buckland, very, very good point there. And I think that it does make sense. I think everyone's got their own way of dealing with that. If you don't want the money or need the money, donation is a great option. But I do think that it goes a long way. What's been proposed is not outrageous by any means. Also want to say it's great to be back. It's a little nerve-wracking to be in a room of people without a mask. I have mine. I was trying not to wear it today. We're all getting through this in our own ways, and I really appreciate being able to do this in person. Also would encourage you to keep YouTube forever. It is such a nice way to watch this for those of us who don't have cable, don't have the other methods of participating. And I agree with being able to do the written comments. Sometimes that's helpful. I tried calling in. It's a little bit awkward, but for some people that's the best way to do it. So I think being as open as you can, we're kind of moving into a hybrid world with a lot of things like this. And I realized before I didn't give you really an update on how the CY Center's doing this year, and I should probably do that. It's been incredible, and we are seeing about the same number of people and revenue as we did in 2019 from about cruise ships. We're seeing a little bit more Alaskans, but we're definitely seeing a lot of out-of-state people. It's pretty fantastic, and I know that a lot of other tourism-oriented places in town are seeing the same thing. So we're very excited. We did not budget for this at all. We budgeted to be at 3/4 of what we were in 2019. So that will be the way that we will be able to put some money aside to pay for our electric bill next year. But it's been amazing. The support from the community, from the state, from everyone has been just absolutely amazing. And it's super to see so many people coming to visit Seward this summer, even though it's causing some challenges. There's not enough people to work at places. And so I wanted to also encourage, if there's any teens out there that need a job, there's a lot of places hiring. So there are lots of opportunities to get involved this summer. But thank you all for what you do. You guys have, both council and staff have, really tough jobs. And as was said before, the vibe in this room is so different than where it was a couple of years ago. And I really appreciate that. You've got a fantastic administration team now. Working with Rob, I've been working with Doug more recently. Just, you've got a great team. And I hope that you'll continue to work well together. Thank you.
Any other comments? Next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments, and I'll start with the administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did want to touch on the forensic audit, and just what we've started in-house. We wanted to let you know that we have started auditing all of the accounts, and they will all be audited even before the forensic audit is complete. We expected that to be 4 months, and by then we will have gone through all of the accounts as well. We have found that some of the accounts do need to be reduced, and we're going to be starting that process immediately. There are some that actually need to be increased, and we're going to work with the attorney to figure out the best route for that. And I guess as your new manager, I really do appreciate starting off with a new slate and answering some questions that have been out there for a very long time. But I did want to let you know that we are being proactive internally in going through all the accounts as well. Thank you.
I'll go to council comments. I'll start with Councilmember Casagrande, and then we'll move on back and forth. I'll start with you.
Great. I would like to, I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this, if it's something that, or I don't know if there's something that we as council or administration can do. I know there's things that I can do as a citizen, like when there's no place to eat on certain days of the week, I can be patient and be grateful and be supportive to those owners that just went through COVID last year, and now they have to experience no staff this year. Even though the numbers are up without employees, we're hurting. And the embassies in a lot of countries still are not open, and there's J1 students that are chomping at the bit like every day saying, do you know anything? Because we don't know anything here, and it's just at a dead standstill. So I don't know if there's something that we can do to write to Lisa Murkowski and just let her know the climate of what's happening in Seward right now. I spoke to a local business owner that said they're gonna have to close. They just can't. They have no staff. They can't do it. As a, I guess I'm a CEO of my business, I'm doing labor every single day. Like I'm cleaning rooms every day, so I can't take care of the higher stuff. And I have no option to close because I can't cancel all those reservations. They're gonna come regardless. So careful what you ask for. Abundance is a great thing, but I don't know if there's anything that we can do as administration and as council to somehow make sure we got our J1s next year. And then also as a citizen and as other business owners, just maybe reaching out to those local business owners and telling them that you understand, because nobody likes to close their doors. So, thank you.
Very well received. Thank you. Councilmember Demas?
Yeah, I just have a few things to say. I wanted to let everyone know that there is going to be an all ages open mic starting at Temple Studios every Sunday from 6 to 8. I know that some of our youth have a hard time finding things to do, so this is good for that, 18 to 20 crowd. I want to congratulate Seward Wilderness Collective on the first farmers market downtown this last weekend. I think it went really well, and I'm really excited to see that continue and possibly grow. And I also want to just kind of piggyback on what Councilmember Casagrande said about just being nice to everybody. And like everyone is recovering from the pandemic right now and trying to come back from it, whether you're a restaurant or you work in government in a department that is understaffed right now, or you work at Safeway or whatever it is. So even though some of us are dealing with tourists all day long and we just want to go out to eat at night with our family and then we can't get in, let's just remember to just try to be extra nice to people when we can be, because I think it's hard for everybody right now. And I also wanted to say Happy Pride Month and to try and support our LGBTQ plus community always, and to stand up for those that aren't as privileged as maybe you are yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Osenka?
Just want to say congratulations and happy retirement and good luck to Janice. And go Lydia, go.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Go Lydia.
Councilmember Cease?
Well, I only had a couple of things, and one of them is to congratulate Janice on her move and what she's going to do. I'm really going to miss her. I've worked on a lot of volunteer things with her over the years, and we've always gotten along very well, and we understood what we were going through. And I'm hoping our child care goes through. That's something that we really need in this town, I feel. Even if I don't have young children to do it, I know that the people would like to have a job and they can't because they're home taking care of their children. I want to thank Jackie for all the work she did about most of the property that we have that's available. And thank you to all our citizens for their comments. And I do have to say the farmers market was nice. I hope they continue. Thank you.
Councilmember McClure?
Well, I want to congratulate Janice for her new life that's coming up. That should be exciting. And I do know that Lydia did really well in her first heat this morning, and there was supposed to be another one right around 6 or so tonight, and I have no idea how she did, but I'm hoping she makes it to the Olympics. We're having a cemetery walk on the 21st. There's always a bit of discussion. If we do the solstice cemetery walk on the 21st, because quite often the solstice is the 21st, so it will be the 21st at 10:30 at the cemetery, and Lee Pulaski and I will take you through a fanciful evening of obituaries in the Masonic area of the cemetery this year. So I hope to see you there, and there's plenty of room to spread out. We decided that it's clear so people won't be too crowded in.
What time?
At 10:30 p.m. Lasts about an hour, and rain or shine. That's all I got.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I want to say Happy Pride Month as well. The Seward Pride Alliance is holding an alphabet soup, which is virtual this year. And it would be this Thursday. You can find details on our Facebook page and look up Seward Pride Alliance. It's a really cool event where people can ask questions of a panel, and a great place where you can feel comfortable to ask those questions, and it's very educational, and we've had a really good turnout for the last 2 years holding this event. And then you can also find events for our Pride celebration, which we pushed back this year at the end of July 30th, 31st, and August 1st. So please reach out to us and your council members about the possibility of raising our stipend. I think that I would like to urge the rest of the council to not just think of themselves and to think of the future of this council and what they would like to see in the future of this council and the people who will eventually replace them. That I think is very important, to have diversity on all sorts of our boards as well as the planning and zoning. So I do appreciate Councilmember DeBoss bringing that up on planning and zoning. Having people who are part of just the community and maybe the rental community is also important on planning and zoning. even for things like childcare, when we look at making adjustments to code and zoning regulations there as well. I appreciate everyone's time as well as administrations and their ability to communicate with council in a quick and effective manner that we have had for the last almost year now with Stephen and our past interim city manager Regis, and it is really uplifting to come here now, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I might start and say I was at a chamber meeting at the beginning of summer where it was identified that there was a holdup with the J1 visas, and there was a state representative from the governor and federal reps there. But Councilmember Casagrande had a great point. We need to start working with our federal lobbyists now to talk about, and even on our priority list in January, make sure that those J1 workers are part of what we advocate for in DC, to make sure that that happens for next year. I just want to mention again, the DVSA crisis line is 907-362-1843. If you're in a situation that you need some assistance, we've had very good people working in that program for many, many years, so it's a well-established program. I was very excited to hear tonight that administration is working on a feasibility study at the lagoon and starting to talk about that with those citizens, and that will come back before council. I want to mention again that volunteers for the July 7th race, and you don't have to be at the top. It sounds like you can be at the bottom. And again, that email is mountmarathon.com, and I looked it up, and it's Mount, like M-O-U-N-T, marathon.com. But if that doesn't work for you, I'm sure the chamber could help. I just want to say that we'll, even without COVID, extra things, we are continuing YouTube, and you can always email to the clerk that will be distributed to council. So we do read those. I know I don't always respond to everyone, but I try to respond to as many as I'm able, but I do read everyone. Happy Father's Day. And then I did let the vice mayor know and administration and the clerk, but I will be out of state June 23rd to July 6th. It's my parents' 51st anniversary that we missed last year for their first 50th. So life is short, which is what last year taught us, so we need to prioritize our family whenever possible. So with that, go ahead if it's
It'll
quick.
be really quick. I was just wondering if there's any way we could get support to do a sign for Lydia.
That's actually a great comment.
A sign?
Like a
banner
something on
or
the
something
boardwalk.
downtown.
I know they
on
did
the boardwalk.
They did signs on the
I know
highway.
they did signs on the
They did signs on the
highway.
highway.
I saw that, but could the city do, maybe on the boardwalk where we normally put Parks and Rec?
So maybe we can look at what that looks like and how far, if we're too far ahead
Okay.
of what's happening, or
Okay,
yeah. But
sorry.
we will say, at the very least, we need to have a proclamation come back.
Okay.
Go Lydia.
Thank you. I was trying to fish around to see. No, I can't find